Welcome to Bhagavad Gita Contemplative Presentations. This is Sachin Karnik. We are continuing our Bhagavad Gita exploration today on verse 3.3, which is the third verse of the third chapter. Before we continue our exploration of this verse further, I want to offer my respects and prostrations to all the great sages and to God, Bhagavan, residing everywhere at all times and all places. I will start out with a small prayer in Sanskrit and then we'll dive right into this verse. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Gam Ganapate Namaha Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. So we're looking at this verse. I will speak the verse word by word here. It's broken down by Sandhi. It's called Sandhi Ched or Padached. I'm sorry, not Sandhi Ched. Sandhi breakdown is called Padached in Sanskrit because the words are connected together in the original verse. So this is how the words are, and then I'll translate each one of them. Then we'll go into a nice exposition, a contemplative exploration, exposition further. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. That means the blessed Lord spoke, God spoke. Bhagavan meaning that supreme reality, supreme being is speaking. Loke asmin dvividhanishta pura prokta maya anagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. This is how the words are broken down. Loke asmin, in this world. Loke meaning the world. Asmin meaning in this world, in this material world that we are experiencing. There are two paths or two firm spiritual disciplines, which are disciplines within us. That is dvividha nishta. Dvividha means twofold. Nishta would mean path, disciplines, convictions, approaches. Lot of ways to understand that word, nishta. Nishta can mean faith, firm conviction, conviction on two paths, twofold paths. That's one way to translate this. So, loke asmin dvividha nishta pura prokta. So Bhagavan Krishna is stating that in the ancient times, in previous times, before Arjun, also before that Mahabharata war, etc., this has been declared before. So this is not something brand new. This is probably there in the Upanishads. It's there in other places also written down. And even that which was not written down, this has been explained before. So Pura Prokta Maya Anagha. So Bhagavan Krishna is saying, I'm the one who has explained this. Yeah, how amazing that is, right? That is God, that is Bhagavan. From time immemorial, it has been explained. And he addresses Arjuna, his disciple, the warrior Arjuna, as Anagha. Anagha means without sin, without fault, without any deficiency. It's an extraordinarily beautiful appellation towards his disciple. And he's using that word particularly, at least in Sachin's interpretation here, because that is to be realized that we don't have deficiency. To not identify with deficiency. We have deficiency, but not to identify with it at all. So we can go into that further. Maya Anagha, and then he goes into these two paths. Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam. For those who are the contemplative individuals, followers of Sankhya, knowledge-oriented seekers. Sankhya is a system of philosophy who are it's a contemplative breakdown, essentially, of the way the world works. That is called Sankhanam, Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, by the path of knowledge for the contemplatives. So the path of knowledge is for those who are very intellectually oriented, contemplatively oriented, analytically oriented. And then the second path is Karma Yogena Yoginam. Karma Yoga is the path of action. Yoga meaning connection with the supreme reality, that is called yoga. And Yoginam are those practitioners who are trying to practice. So Bhagavan Krishna is talking about two specific approaches which eventually get combined, because it is a combination of all of these ideas that come together within us. They don't exist in isolation. The Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga definitely combine together without any doubt. So now let's look at the translation here, literal translation. In this world, O sinless one, the twofold path of spiritual discipline was taught by me in the past. Path of knowledge for the contemplative, and the path of action, Karma Yoga, for those engaged in action. So the path of knowledge is called Jnana Yoga, path of action is called Karma Yoga. A more refined interpretive translation would be as follows. Krishna explains that human spiritual evolution proceeds through two primary orientations, one rooted in direct knowledge and contemplation, and the other in selfless action and disciplined engagement with the world. These are not contradictory paths, but distinct modalities suited to different psychological and spiritual temperaments. We all have a temperament, right? So it is based on that. Sri Krishna's statement in Bhagavad Gita 3.3 is not merely classification, it is ontological, psychological, and methodological. That means that ontological refers to the state of being in our spiritual practices, as well as state of being with regards to mind and our original self. Also the mental phenomena, that is the psychological, and the methods to follow. The two paths, Dvividha Nishta, represent two distinct orientations of consciousness towards liberation. Consciousness meaning our psychological consciousness that is to be reoriented towards mukti or liberation. So this grounding, it is a type of grounding. So it is grounding or grounded in different structures of the inner instrument, the antakarana. So the antakarana, our inner mental framework, is called manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. These are four aspects. They're structures, you can think of it this way, within the mind, or the mind is made out of that. So the two distinct orientations of consciousness towards liberation, so it's a reorientation towards liberation from the bound state. And that reorientation, that orientation of consciousness towards liberation is grounded in the antakarana. I hope that is clear. Okay, now, very interesting. And by the way, remember, the antakarana is made out of the manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. Manas meaning conscious mind, buddhi meaning intellect, ahankar is the ego, the capacity to possess, I and mine and me, and the chitta, chitta, that is the subconscious reservoir of memories. Okay, Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. What is the core orientation? Jnana Yoga is the path of direct insight into reality, Atman and Brahman, through Viveka and Vairagya, detachment and discrimination and detachment. Let's understand that clearly. So, Jnana Yoga means it's a path of the intellect, wisdom, understanding, opening our intellect. Path of knowledge it is called, but knowledge doesn't mean just information. It is a path of contemplative inquiry. Information is there, obviously. Without information, we cannot do anything, right? So information is always available, and that is part of Jnana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga is a path of direct insight into who am I? What is the nature of reality? Brahman, Atman. Brahman meaning vast, infinite, super consciousness, beyond psychological consciousness. And how is that done? Through two qualities, Vivek and Vairagya. Right? So Vivek and Vairagya are relative qualities. They are important. They're not relative qualities. They are essential. They make up the essence of Jnana Yoga, the path of discriminative wisdom and knowledge. It basically asks, what is real? What is the self? With the capital S, who am I? What is not the self? These are the basic questions. Viveka means discrimination. It doesn't mean racial discrimination. It means to separate that which is real versus non-real, ephemeral, which is permanent, the Atman versus that which is not the Atman, that which ought to be done in life, which ought not to be done. Ethics, morality is part of that. And Vairagya, although it is translated as detachment in many places, it really means above attachment and detachment, beyond raga and dvesha. Vairagya means transcendent to raga, which would also mean transcendent to the continuum upon which the attraction-repulsion cycle works. I hope these points are clear. Now, if there are questions, please do ask me about it in our morning contemplative satsang, or you can send messages by WhatsApp or email or whatever. I'll be happy to clarify anything that needs clarification on this or further dialogue. Now, what is the primary methodology in Gnan Yoga? Well, there are three things. First is Shravan. Shravan meaning to listen. It is a systematic, careful listening to the ideas by enlightened beings that are expressing truth. This is how the Upanishads were written. These are questions and answers. Upanishad means the enlightened being who is awakened completely is transmitting that knowledge and wisdom of how to reach that reality to the disciples, to the Shishya. So this is called Guru, Shishya, Sambandha, Guru, Shishya, Parampara, the teachings that come down the road. But anyway, that is Shravan. Shravan is the first rung of this ladder. There are 4 rungs essentially. So Shravan, through 3 rungs, and then the 4th is realization. So Shravan is systematic listening. Do we listen systematically? That's what we're trying to do here with 3.3 Bhagavad Gita. 3.3, to systematically, carefully understand this verse. Many times we read the Gita and kind of gloss over it or whatever, but it's better to really understand each verse thoroughly, properly, clearly, as wonderfully as possible. That will help us a lot, right? The next stage after Shravan, after systematic listening to truth, is rational reflection to remove doubts. That is called Manana. Manan means rational reflection, not just reflection. Using our rationality, using our logic, using our clarity of thought. This is why study of philosophy is very helpful to be able to do the Mananam process in life in general. But this is rational reflection. And then how that is done is described in Vedanta. It basically means that we listen to ideas, which we're going to get into in just a moment here. And then that reflection inside is the key. That eventually leads to deep contemplative absorption. That is called Nididhyasana, Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means deep contemplative absorption. Again, this is all part of Gnan Yoga. This is the path. That Nididhyasana leads to Sakshatkar, meaning realization. Now, what is the cognitive mechanism? Meaning a mechanism of the intellect. The Gnan Yoga operates primarily through the intellect, the buddhi. So what does it do? It deconstructs false identifications. The body and its activity, it goes on. Mind and its activity goes on. Our personality and the roles within the personality, they go on. But it deconstructs them. In what sense? That's not me. The body, the mind, the roles that I'm playing, that's not really who I am. Right? This is the point of the Gnan Yoga. It uses a technique, a methodology called neti neti. Not this, not this. I'm not this particular hand or leg or mind or thoughts. These things are there, but that's not me. I am the witnessing consciousness. I'm separate. It's a technique. It is a contemplative, reflective, meditative technique called neti neti. Neti-neti. Not this, not this. We'll talk more about it later on. What does that technique lead to? Leads to Atma, Anatma, Vivek. Right? So self versus non-self discrimination. The intellect is then charged, powered between what is the reality of who I am versus what I am not. right? So the mental activity that is going on, and then the physical body and its activity, it's going on. We're alive in that, but that's not me actually. That is activity that is going on. So that is the viveka. Viveka is an opening of the mind, the intellect, the discriminative power, right? So we'll get into all this, how this is all to be done. I'm just giving an overview first, and then we'll go into the depth of it as we continue forward. So the psychological profile that suits individuals. So this path of Jnana Yoga is best suited for individuals who are having one or more of the four qualities. Individuals who are introspective, that they have the ability to look within, they want to look within and really probe within. This is called introspection. They're also philosophically inclined, or could be philosophically, analytically inclined, to engage in the philosophical, contemplative, analytical process, Western, Eastern philosophy both. Who are individuals who are also naturally dispassionate. They don't have too much binding inside this worldly affairs. Then this is good for them. The world in its activity goes on. They're not too much, they're concerned with it. They wish well for all and all, but they're not lingering with all kinds of entanglements and attachments that much. The disposition, we're just talking about disposition or psychological profile, natural dispassion, the individuals who are naturally dispassionate. Fourth quality, that they are capable of sustained attention and abstraction, that they can sit for a good hour and a half and really probe carefully into concepts and ideas that can link together. So this is called the capacity for sustained attention and for sustained abstraction. That would mean to really cross-connect many pieces together, to think in philosophical ways, to probe and to observe and to break down, things like that. To think in abstract terms, which is what is necessary for philosophical study. Again, I'm just giving an overview here, right? I'm not elaborating on all of these points right now. I'm just giving a nice overview here. Now, what is the energetic interpretation in the path of Jnana Yoga? It is a movement from the gross level to the subtle level to the causal awareness. It is a dissolution of identity structures that are present within the subconscious mind, the chitta, chitta. Identity structures, even though they remain, there is de-identification, dissolution of them. There's freedom from those identity structures. And hence there is stabilization in pure witnessing consciousness. Right? So this is called Jnana Yoga. This is the energetic understanding of what happens in Jnana Yoga. So there's a psychological profile that has 4 points. There's the energetic interpretation that has 3 points that we just looked at. So what is the end state? The end state is Atmagnan, self-realization. A realization, I am not the doer, I am pure awareness. Freedom from bondage through knowledge alone, Jnana Moksha. Right? This is the more non-dualistic type of path that is talked about here. Okay, so this is all Jnana Yoga. It's really, really quite beautiful. There's a lot to be said about this, certainly, but again, I'm just giving an overview first of these points, and then we will dive into them in more detail as we move ahead. The second path in this verse is Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga, what is the core orientation? Karma Yoga, meaning the path of selfless action, Nishkam Karma, is performed with 3 major points. Without attachment to results. Of course, there's action performed. Action is performed without doubt. Action is also mental, verbal, and physical. But the attachment to the result of the action is not there. Awareness of the result is there. Even maybe wanting a particular result is there, obviously. But the attachment to the result is not there. Okay, a lot of examples. We won't go into that right now. Again, Karma Yoga is the path of selfless action. that is performed without ego identification. Usually we perform action through our ego identification and we get trapped and stuck and create karma. Yes, so continuing forward, Karma Yoga is activity that we perform in life without attachment to results. So we are aware of results, we are keeping results in mind, we have goals in mind, everything is there. But the attachment process is not present. That is the path of Karma Yoga. And again, we will be going into that. In fact, the whole chapter 3 is about that, really. All right, let's go further here. The second point in Karma Yoga, because there's core orientation, 3 key points. Action performed without attachment to results. Action performed, selfless action performed without egoic identification. And the third point is selfless action performed as an offering, Ishwar Arpana. That means to offer each action itself at the feet of God, at the feet of the Supreme Almighty Divine. Right? That is called Ishwar Arpan. So Karma Yoga asks, how can I act without being bound by action? This is the basic question. So what is the methodology? The primary methodology has 4 points. Okay, so these 4 points are: perform one's duty fully. One must know what is one's duty towards family, towards the body, towards the mind, towards relatives, towards other human beings, towards nature, etc. So to perform one's dharma means right action, correct action, beneficial action, that's duty. And to perform that fully, F-U-L-L-Y, fully. So there's 4 points for the methodology. Perform one's duty fully. Second point is what is called renounce expectation of results. Certain expectations we have and we get trapped. So, yeah, we want certain results, but to renounce the expectation that things must be this way, this way, this way, this way, then only I'm happy, then this will happen, then that will happen. So that is called phal asha in Sanskrit or Hindi, Gujarati languages. Renounce phal asha. Phal meaning the fruit, the asha meaning the entangled expectation. Right? So renounce that. The third methodology is cultivate equanimity. Equanimity in performing each and every action, hour by hour, day by day. That is called samatva, S-A-M-A-T-V-A. Right? So to cultivate equanimity. This is all application-based process. And the fourth methodology is to convert action into worship. Karma becomes yajna. Each action is no longer ego-bound. It is a sacrifice for the all of reality. Every action is yajna. Y-A-J-N-A. With the squiggly line top of the N. All right, so these are 4 methodologies. Now, the cognitive emotional mechanism in Karma Yoga is as follows. It has 3 points. Karma Yoga works primarily through the ego refinement. Ego gets refined. So when we are performing these methodologies that we just looked at, the 4 of them, our ego gets refined. That is called antakarana shuddhi or antakarana purification. Purification of the man buddhi chit ahankar. There is a reduction of the likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha. That is the cognitive emotional mechanism of what happens internally. And emotional regulation happens wonderfully, beautifully through detached engagement. We engage, but we're not entangled. I like the word non-entangled better than detached. That's okay, we can use the word detached if we want, but that is a sense of kind of retracting away from the world, and that's not what that means. They're not retracting away from the world. We are regulating ourselves emotionally and in every other way without entanglement in the actions we're performing. You could call that detached engagement if we want. Now, who is this path suited for? What is the psychological profile? It is best suited for individuals who are active and dynamic, who are, very active physically, mentally. The individuals who are just they have difficulty with contemplation and philosophy and stuff like that. They want to be active, doing things. So Karma Yoga is excellent. Most people in life are in this modality. This is suitable. Who are emotionally expressive. They like to talk a lot, like to be very emotionally expressive, things like that. It's good for them. They like to engage in worldly responsibilities and who are, very much immersed in worldly activities. It's good for them. Not inclined towards withdrawal or abstraction. Too much sitting for meditation, deep contemplation. I don't like to do all that thing. Karma Yoga is the path. Right? So abstraction, too much intellectual analysis, it won't work. So it depends on where we are. We must understand our psychological profile to determine which of these two paths to start out with. And then eventually they do blend together, they connect together. Into devotion and other things that we'll talk about later on. So what is the energetic interpretation? Energetic interpretation is the transformation of outward moving energy, pravrutti, into purification. So we're always having outward moving energy with friends and with family and with talking and walking and towards the objects of the senses and people of the world, etc. So there's transformation of the outward moving energy into purification. The same energy is still moving outward, but now it's done in a very purified, different way, using the four methods of dharma, of doing one's duty, renouncing the expectation of results, cultivating equanimity, and converting action into worship, into karma, into yajna. Those four primary methods are the way of taking this outward moving energy into a purification state. Okay, and so there's two more points energetically. That there is the conversion of karmic entanglements, meaning our karma that is binding us, karma that is accumulated, karma meaning the force that is accumulated due to past actions and current actions, into karmic neutralization. So karmic entanglement, it goes into karmic neutralization. That's the second energetic transformation that conserves energy. And by going through the process of Karma Yoga, gradually the mind, the manas, is quiet. It quiets down. It gets still. Gradually quiets the mind. So all the mind that is chewing up so much energy with the ego-driven activity, worry, tension, fear, that is no longer happening eventually as time goes on, as we become more proficient in Karma Yoga. And then there is the purification also of the chitta, which is the storehouse of memories and our inner mind. So what is the end state in Karma Yoga? 3 points. There's the chitta shuddhi, purified mind, readiness for higher knowledge, and eventually leading to Jnana Yoga. So this is sometimes looked at this way. The Karma Yoga is a doorway eventually into Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, other yogas. They're all together. I mean, there's no way to not do Karma Yoga. Even if you're a Bhakti-oriented person, contemplative person, we still are performing action. And every person performing action is still contemplative to some extent. So they all combine together ultimately within us. Right? But the end state of Karma Yoga is that it can move into the Jnana Yoga state. What is the relationship between the two paths? Bhagavan Krishna is not presenting two competing systems, but a developmental continuum. Karma Yoga leads into Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga is the purifier of the mind, removes the ego plus the attachment structure, the harmful attachment-detachment continuum where one is trapped in. And Jnana Yoga reveals the truth. It destroys ignorance. What is the key insight? Karma Yoga prepares the instrument, that is us. Jnana Yoga reveals reality. Without purification, knowledge remains intellectual. Without knowledge, action remains binding. See, hope this is clear. Without purification, knowledge is just intellectual information. It just remains like that. Right? So there has to be purification. And without knowledge, action remains binding. So they come together that way. We'll continue on this further in our next recording. Thank you so much. Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Radha. Hari Om.